Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the invocation by findings and the pledge by Gail Lazenby.
Lord God, thank you for the many blessings you have bestowed on us. Be with us as our deliberations and help us to be wise in our discussions decisions we make, good of all those who place their trust and confidence in our leadership. We ask that you watch over and protect our first responders and military as they go through the daily details. Bless you this day, and may all that is done be for your greater honor and glory.
Veterans Day salute. Hands over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. This is the Ad Hoc Fire EMS Medical Transport Committee. We are meeting at the Wildwood Community Center, 6500 Powell Road, Washington and Jefferson rooms in Wildwood, Florida, 34785, and it is the appointed hour. We're going to get into the public forum in just a moment. I have to read something, and I'd like to ask you all to please pay attention. The Ad Hoc Fire, EMS, and Medical Transport Committee welcomes and encourages public input on all issues subject to the committee's jurisdiction, which affect the residents of Sumter County. However, in order to preserve decorum in these proceedings, the committee respectfully requests that an individual wishing to address the committee during public forum be mindful of the following provisions of Section 2-31 of the Sumter County Code, which have been in effect since 1982. Each person shall limit his or her one address to 5 minutes unless granted additional time by a majority vote of the committee. And if we were to do that, it would be after everybody else has had an opportunity to speak first. Additionally, any person making impertinent or slanderous remarks or becomes boisterous shall be instructed to remain silent by me until permission to continue is granted. Questions posed to the committee during the public forum may be answered by the chairman at the end of the public forum or delegated to county staff to provide a follow-up response after the meeting. For questions requiring follow-up or requiring additional details, you may contact the county through the email contact information provided on this agenda. That is right here. Now, in addition, when you get up, please clearly state your name and your address. If you're an active firefighter or police officer, your name is fine. Let me see a show of hands. How many people intend to speak tonight? Okay. Why don't we ask you to go ahead and at least start lining up every 5 or 6 feet apart until we add more space. No, not at the fire. If they're in there we are. They've been doing it all the time. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, my name is Len Hathaway. I live at 1568 Hartsfield Trail in the village of Sunset Point. I would like to thank all of you on this panel for sharing your expertise in serving the community to make a decision on this important subject. I'm a 16-year resident of the Villages. When I came here, the Villages Fire Department was an ISO 5 department. Station 51 was headquarters, and that was said to be the center of the Villages. How things have changed. Now that the Villages Fire Department has earned an ISO 2 rating, demonstrating the growing proficiency with a positive impact on homeowner insurance rates. I find that only about 5% fire departments across the nation have a ISO 2 rating. I've witnessed the steady growth of the village's fire department that has matched the demands of the rapidly growing community, now said to be 134,000 people, and additional 100,000 people come through here per day to either work, visit, or to be educated. But there's more to discuss about this 90 square mile service territory. Residential growth fuels commercial property that needs to be protected, such as multi-story apartments we come by when we arrive here, rehab facilities, nursing homes, memory care facilities, and the like. Not to be overlooked is the existing industrial properties along Rolling Acres Road, the growing Scott Industrial Park on I-75, 8 miles of the Turnpike, and a segment of the CX rail line. Villages have come to rely on the fire department for other innovative, non-traditional services, including battery replacement for their smoke detectors that have said that 100 people take advantage of per week. Another is the infant seat security program that is key for when small grandchildren come to visit. Neighbors Helping Neighbors, AED program is spread under the village's fire department leadership with documented saves. About 5,000 residents, including myself, have been trained in CPR and AED usage. I was a member of the community emergency response team for 10 years. During that time, the village's fire department was forward thinking and formed a firefighter rehab team. I was in the first class trained and participated in support of new fire fighters live fire training at Citrus County Fire and Rescue Training Center, and participated in the first call out of a lightning-caused residential fire in the village of Point Siena. I see no case for rolling the village's fire department into the county, which has precedent in other communities, even of our smaller size. For example, Clearwater is 120,000 people, and they have their own fire department, as does Reedy Creek Improvement District, that protects the guests in the 150 structures on the Disney properties. I'm sure you can find many other cases such as that. In summary, I don't understand why the village's fire department was swept into this entire issue in the first place. As I understand it, as I understand it, the issue arose because medical transport service was not meeting their contracted commitment for response times. This had nothing to do with the village's fire department. Therefore, I would like you to consider my statement, vote for option 9, use your common sense, and if it isn't broken, don't fix it.
My name is Mike Rinaldi. I live at 3322 Bell Terrace in the village of Pine Hills, Lake County. I'd like to say thank you to the committee for allowing us to speak. And this is not going to be an easy decision for you, and I understand that. It is obvious that your recommendations will affect not only Sumter County, but also Lake and Merritt counties. I would also like to thank the chairman of this committee for being transparent and allowing people to speak. Thank you. First, the village fire department as it stands today cannot be changed. It would be dangerous and irresponsible for anyone to think otherwise. My wife and I each had firsthand experiences when we needed emergency medical treatment at our home. The village fire department was prompt and outstanding. I encourage you to recommend option 9, where the village's fire department will continue to handle all fire and EMS calls within the villages, as well as adding all the transportation calls within the villages. South Sumter would provide those same services to the people outside the villages. If this is not possible, option 5 would be another alternative. There would need to be guarantees to be put in the contract where there will be penalties if the transportation service does not meet the required EMS response and timing. If this committee cannot is not able to come to an unanimous decision recommending either option 9 or 5, then go back to the board with no recommendation. That would be the proper thing to do to protect the safety, lives, and property of all residents. I realize that it was not one of the options, but if you cannot recommend 9 or 5, then I would like to see the village pursue the independent fire district. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I appreciate my input. If you could listen to my input. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there a way we can get a mic for him more conveniently, please?
This will be fine. I think I can take this out, so. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. My name is Scott Lee. I live at 2005 Culpeper Way in the village of Bonnybrook. And in some respects, I'm uniquely qualified to speak here tonight, and I appreciate having the opportunity to do so. And the reason why I'm uniquely qualified is because a lot of these guys back here in the yellow shirts, including myself tonight as a volunteer, they showed up at my house on August 11th of last year at 3 o'clock in the morning. I had a complete house fire and we lost everything. And if it wasn't for these guys in the yellow shirts, I may not be here tonight. And so when you guys think about this, you need to think it seriously. Because this is I don't know how all this got going, but to think that you're going to put this in jeopardy is just craziness. And if you need an example of what it looks like, I mean, just come to me and I'll be happy to show you. I got pictures of our house with me tonight. And like I said, I had 32 years worth of contents in that house. Me and my wife had been married that long, and we lost it all. Not part of it, all of it. So that's what I want you to think about when you have this ad hoc committee meeting. And the fact that the EMS part of this, I mean, that's just as important to a person like me that's handicapped. I mean, the fire department their response time to my house was just about 7 minutes. And that's pretty dang fast, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning. So to me, it seems like everybody's playing games with these numbers. And figures don't lie, but liars figure. So keep that in mind as you look at your data. And if you need a real example, all you got to do is look no further than somebody like me. And with that, I'll close my thoughts for tonight. So please be considerable of people like us in your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for making that adjustment for us.
My name is Susan Ridgway, and I live at 3775 Wine Palm Way in the village of Lake Deaton. First of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts on the future of the EMS ambulance service in the villages in Sumter County. I know that you've got a difficult task sorting through the options in order to make a recommendation to the Sumter County Board of Commissioners. After reviewing and researching the 10 options proposed by the County Administrator Bradley Arnold, I have the following observations. The 10 options appear in some cases to be very similar and can be confusing. Did 10 options really need to be presented for your consideration, or was the confusion the goal? Options 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, and 8 all start with retaining a private sector partner or third-party contractor to provide ambulance transport. For the past 10 years, Sumter County has contracted with AMR, and although AMR would like you to think their present difficulties fulfilling the terms of the contract is due to the COVID-19 pandemic, problems have existed in the past. Many of the issues have not come to light previously, in part due to the conflict of interest that exists between AMR and the county's contract administrator. But would a different provider be any different? AMR stated at this last meeting that they had trouble finding and retaining employees. There are just a few other companies providing ambulance service. So are their hiring and employee retention programs any better than AMR? One benefit of contracting out services is not having to worry about staffing. A different company would be pulling from the same pool of candidates as AMR. So where is the benefit by going with a different company? Options 5 and 6 have the ambulance service being provided by an academic partner, which in this case would be UF. Over 3 years ago, UF bought the Villages and Leesburg regional hospitals with the promise of improving performance, specifically in regards to the operation of the ERs. Since UF has taken over, has anything improved? 2 examples. A week ago yesterday, my next door neighbor fell in her bathroom, breaking her pelvis. The fire department arrived and had to wait for transport about 20 minutes, which wasn't too terribly long. The problem was once she got to the ER at 1:30 a.m. in the morning, it was 17 hours before she was taken to a room. She is still in rehab now. Both the Villages and Leesburg hospitals have had the longest offload times of any other hospitals in the area. Hospitals in Ocala and the surrounding counties have a much lower offload times, not only in the past year, but in previous years as well. All the hospitals have had to deal with COVID-19, so that should not be accepted as an excuse. Why would we even consider an option that puts ambulance service with an entity that has absolutely no experience in this area and has not fulfilled the previous promises of improving their core business? Option 10 is to put the ambulance service with the fire departments, but combine both Sumter County and the Villages into one department. Why is this necessary? The 2 departments are performing well now and have been for a long time. It isn't necessary to combine the 2 just to add ambulance service. As the saying goes, and as one of the previous speakers said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. As I see it, the best and only option that should be considered is option 9. This puts the ambulance service within Sumter County and the Villages fire departments. Both already staffed paramedics and EMTs have excellent training programs and successfully demonstrate a quick response time. The ambulances could be dispatched out of the existing station houses, which are well distributed throughout Sumter County and the Villages. Additionally, being a paramedic, EMT, or firefighter is a career to them, not just a job. And the men and women in these departments should be proud of the job that they do and have been doing as first responders for us. I, for one, am very thankful of the job they do every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just make a quick comment. I know that people are fired up over this issue, but keep in mind that speakers have 5 minutes, and if you have an extended period of applause, that cuts into their time and their ability to speak. I'm not trying to. I did. Never mind.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Dorman. I live at 1275 Manuel Circle in the village of Hawkins. I have come to you tonight to ask you to do what is best for the citizens of the villages, and that is to do all you can to provide us with a quality EMS service. I have come to ask you to stand for providing the residents with a corps of ambulances operated and run by the village's public safety department. As you all know, we, the citizens of the villages, are at the time in our lives when we are more likely to need quality EMS care and a timely ambulance service than any point in our lives. I have been a resident of the villages since June, so it is fair to say that I am not on top of every issue and nuance of ambulance services in Sumter County, but I have read enough to understand that response times is a big issue, and on the table are solutions which would potentially eliminate our first responders. That's unacceptable. I have chosen to speak to you tonight because I have lived through issues similar to the ones you face today. I spent 38 years of my life in Ohio as a full-time firefighter for Boardman Fire Department, a suburb of Youngstown, Ohio, adjacent to Youngstown, Ohio. For 8 years, as the captain, I rode the rescue squad. For another 8 years, I was the assistant chief, and for my final 15 years, I served as the fire chief. For all of my time in the fire service, I witnessed the good and the bad of ambulance services. During my entire career, our community was served by private ambulances. Some of those years we suffered as the ambulance companies struggled with manning issues and vehicles on the road. But I was also aware that what it takes to provide a successful EMS service to the community. From my very first day on the job, our fire department provided first responder services to the community. When a person needed medical assistance, our department responded rapidly, and when it was working properly, an ambulance arrived within 9 minutes. With fire stations strategically placed throughout Boardman, fire trucks could maintain a 4-minute average response time year after year. Our personnel provided badly needed early medical care before an ambulance arrived. When everyone was performing within expected parameters, this system provided the best for the people of Boardman. We in the villages must do all that we can to keep our first responders on the job. I also saw times when the system failed. Those were times when the ambulance company could not meet its contractual obligation to respond in an agreed upon timely manner. So when I became the fire chief in 1996, I fought hard for years to provide our community with a fire ambulance service. But my efforts were unsuccessful, unfortunately, due to politics. But the reasons that I fought so hard are still true today. I didn't want to put my community's health and safety in the hands of a for-profit business. Their quality of service may come and go based on their own financial stability. Number two, it's hard to beat the 1-2 punch of a quick response from first responders, followed by a quick response from our own ambulance service. Our fire and EMS services, the village public safety department, is a vital part of the equation. We do not want to lose this vital link in the chain. Their value is important to quality care in Boardman and is equally important to the villages. Number three, I thought that my community would be better off if our department was managing and operating our own complete EMS service. And finally, it's worth repeating. We senior citizens are at the time of our lives when we have the most need for quality and timely EMS care. Let's make sure it's provided. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Dan Warren, 3087 Bureau Path, Village of Gilchrist. Been a resident of the villages for 16 years. I don't have any firefighting or EMS background. I'm an engineer and a finance guy. So I would like to just offer some comments as a citizen. Number one, I respect the judgment that you all are going to have. You've got a lot more experience in this area than myself. By the same token, though, I would ask you to take the input that you're going to hear tonight and weigh that equally. Because if you were to take a poll of the 130,000 people in the villages and ask them to value the village's fire department, it's at the top of the list. It's one of the most valued assets that we have as part of our lifestyle. There's a huge investment that has already been made in buildings, equipment, building staff, and training that staff. We cannot diminish that, get rid of it at all. We have to enhance it. I've lived in a number of different communities east of the Mississippi, probably 20 as part of my workplace. My observations are that when you're in an urban area, all of the services, the response services, are generally under the fire department. And that's what I thought we had here until this issue popped up with regard to transport. The urban areas were volunteer. I see the same situation here. We've got two different fire departments serving two different types of needs and two different types of expectations. And I think they're both doing a fine job. You got the rural areas and you've got the urban areas, which is the villages. We should leave that the same. We should not change that at all. I don't know how the issue went from transport to 10 options. I have my suspicions. To me, it's simple. Put transport in the fire departments, period. Both fire departments are doing a great job. Let them concentrate on the area. And the expectations are different. Rural areas, the expectations are very different in terms of response time than the urban areas. And there's a lot of other differences and probably regulations that you can all figure out. Lastly, if a recommendation other than recommendation 9, you only got 10 choices. If a recommendation other than 9 makes it to the county board, the outpouring that you see tonight and the outpouring that the county board saw with the 25% tax increases is going to look like child's play. Thank you.
My name is Sheldon Levy. I live at 2448 Carruthers Path in the village of DeSoto. First thing I want to say is I am in full support of the proposals that have been put forth by Chief Kane. If you consolidate the village's fire and rescue with Sumter County Fire, we, the villagers and voters, will see the reduction in our services. We may lose the very vital AED program, our smoke detector program, and we will see increases in our insurance rates and increased response times for emergencies. Originally, the problem to be addressed was AMR's inability to maintain contract requirements of 10-minute or less response times. Now we see the county has agreed to a 5-minute grace time on top of the already slow response times. There's also been no evidence presented to show how many times AMR has been fined for not meeting the contracted requirements for payment to fines. We have seen the use of basic life support units when we are supposed to have all paramedic units. At the last committee meeting, I heard you, gentlemen, ask Chief Kane to bring specific information and speak at tonight's meeting. However, I've been told that he was removed from the agenda. Why was he removed? Why was he removed? And if it's not your decision, what is the committee going to do about it? You were appointed and empowered to have meetings to hear all facts and opinion in order to make recommendations to the county commissioners. You gentlemen, with all due respect, need to do your jobs to research every possibility to make your recommendations in the best interest of all residents and voters. Based on the 10 proposals of Bradley Arnold and what I am seeing and hearing tonight, it appears to me that everything is being done to confuse the voters and ignore the real problem of poor services rendered by AMR. There is no problem with our 2 separate fire departments who work together seamlessly every day. Bradley Arnold has taken a single source problem in AMR and now included the 2 fire departments. It is my opinion that there really are only 2 problems to solve. 1, get rid of AMR and allow the 2 fire departments to provide EMS transport services. And 2, get rid of Bradley Arnold for creating a problem. Get rid of Bradley Arnold for creating a problem beyond what it really is and the wasting of voters' time and money. Thank you very much.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Kimball Billingsley. I work for the village's public safety department, and tonight I'm speaking to you not in my official capacity, but simply as a human being with a vested interest in this topic. I'd like to start by disclosing a couple of things. Number one, I'm a bit of a nervous public speaker, so please bear with me. And number two, I talk with my hands. So if I look like a bird trying to take flight up here, I apologize. I believe that by speaking with you this evening, it could possibly hinder my chances of being hired by Sumter County if a consolidation of the fire departments occurs. But I was always taught that it is important to stand up for what's right, even if it means making a sacrifice. The 5 options regarding merging the fire departments and how they came about are beyond me because they don't address the ambulance issues. Now, I say the word issues, not implying that the EMTs and paramedics who work on these ambulances are bad. I know a few of them personally, and I would like to publicly say that they're all wonderful people and very skilled providers. It is the ambulance system that is broken, not the employees. It is the ambulance system that is broken, not the fire departments. This whole thing is not about the personnel of AMR, Sumter County Fire, or the village's public safety department. They are all outstanding people who have dedicated their lives to helping others. It is the ambulance system that needs your attention, not the fire departments. If the fire departments were broken and that component needed your attention and help, you would know, we would know, the data would show it, and it is certain that the citizens who we protect would let you know about it. Sumter County Fire and the village's public safety department are outstanding agencies, and the firefighters and personnel of both agencies do a phenomenal job of protecting the very 2 different demographics that each department serves. I'm here this evening to ask you, please focus your attention on the component in all of this that needs your undivided attention. EMS and the delivery of ambulances need your attention, not the fire departments. Please do not be tempted to divert your attention elsewhere, even though these 10 options with the fire departments being mixed in certainly make it easy to do so. I personally have been through 2 fire department mergers in a surrounding county, and I can tell you from experience, it is not as simple as just changing uniforms. There's a lot of time, effort, money that goes into a merger, and there are a great number of things that change both operationally and with personnel that come with a merger. And generally, mergers of fire departments occur when there are issues that need to be corrected within them, which again, in this situation, there are not. Please direct your attention and focus to EMS and the delivery of ambulances so that we can move forward in a positive direction to ensure that the public receives the prompt and expert care they deserve, and so we can all get back to work. Let's move forwards, not backwards. Thank you for your time, and I thank you for hearing me this evening. I have nothing but respect for each of you as you have volunteered your time to serve on this committee. I have nothing but respect for the personnel of AMR and Sumter County Fire. And as I work with the men and women of the village's public safety department, it goes without saying I have nothing but respect for them, and I would go with them to the ends of this earth without hesitation. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Eric Williamson. I'm a lieutenant with the village's fire rescue. I'm also the secretary of the local IFF 4770, which is the professional firefighters of the villages. So tonight, previously we had addressed the committee about a presentation. I've been working with the IFF both at a state and national level to develop this. And what it is a EMS integration study that the IFF provides for departments. They basically take all that data that the fire department generates. We have sent it to them. And what I have for you this evening is a short talking points presentation. If after speaking with Ms. Smith, after the public forum, if you all agree to let me present it, it should only be a short 10, 15, depending on how many questions. But that's what I have for you this evening. It's up to you if you'd like to see it. Like I said, it's short talking points. The full study, which normally takes 4 to 6 months, they are still working on. They've dedicated several resources to that at the national level. And once I have that in my hands, it'll be in your hands.
If I could suggest, why don't you go ahead and use your 5 minutes to start, and then when the rest of the public is done.
I would have to put the presentation up on the screen.
Well,
I'd like to move that we allow this presentation. We knew about that. Can we modify the agenda? Do we need to have a vote?
What you would need to do is provide the motion, and then if there's a second, then it will proceed for vote. And if the majority approves to amend the agenda with the presentation, you can proceed.
I'd like to move that we amend the public forum currently to allow for a 15-minute presentation. We talked about this a couple months ago. And I think it'd only be appropriate to allow them to display that, to give us that presentation.
all in favor?
Yeah, we need a second.
All in favor? Raise your hand.
Thank you, gentlemen. And I apologize to everybody behind me. Let me get that going for you.
Do you want to proceed with the presentation currently in the middle of the public forum, or wait till the public forum is concluded?
I think it would only be fair if we waited until the public forum was over. Rather than making the individual.
That's what I was trying to say. What we're gonna do is.
Yeah, I'll do it
because
after the
be
public
unfair to
forum.
those behind, we'll give you your time when the public forum is over.
That's great. Gives me more time.
Is that fair?
Absolutely. That's actually what I was looking at. So the rest of my couple minutes, I just want to say that that was my first little point. My second point, I've worked as a firefighter in the villages here for 7 years. Additional 3 years I've worked for Florida Hospital EMS. I've worked in PR at Florida Hospital. I currently work as a paramedic at Universal Studios. And I've also worked for Rural Metro in Sumter County when they first took over, as well as AMR in Orange County. So in my short 10 years, I have quite a bit of background working in different style systems and different styles of delivery of EMS. I don't know how we got to, as everyone else has said, EMS problem turning into merging the fire departments. But I'd also like to point out that I've been to all these meetings but one. If you notice, I'm a little unshaven. That wasn't 2 days off. My wife and I just had our first child 3 weeks ago. So I should probably be at home with her and my 3-week-old, but tonight I'm here as both a lieutenant and the union secretary. Each one of you at some point in one of these meetings has mentioned that you don't want to see jobs go away. You don't want to see people lose their jobs. The union and myself have never wanted anybody to lose their job. But we've ended up on a subject that arguably causes the most people to lose their jobs. I spend most of my day at home either taking care of the baby or answering questions from the 150 plus union members I represent. I've had to address issues of, will my kids still be able to go to the charter school if the county takes us over? I don't know. What will happen with our retirement? I don't know. What will happen with this? What will happen with that? I don't know. No answers have been provided to us because nobody put anything more than the idea on the table. What we're in favor of, as many others have suggested, is either option 9 or the village is becoming its own special tax district. And that's all I have to say until my presentation. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Good evening. Russ DeMedio, D-E-M-I-D-I-O. I'm a 17-year resident of the Villages. I live on 1340 Patrick Place in the village of Virginia Trace. Dear committee members, I've attended most of these workshop sessions and listened to the proceedings attentively. I want to thank each of you for your willingness to serve, your efforts, your dedication, and a lot of your expertise. As you coming to a close on this analysis, I want to remind you and the public of 3 things. First, solve the root cause problem. Don't try to solve a problem that isn't there. The primary issue at hand is delays in response to transport patients to the emergency rooms in the hospitals. The for-profit EMR service is not living up to expectations, whether it be staffing, number of available operational ambulances, or their profit pressure. Yes, COVID has affected everyone, but we need to look beyond COVID. Secondly, the Sumter County Fire Department and the Village Public Safety / Fire Department are performing admirably as two separate entities. Each of them serve populations with different demographics and some different patient customer requirements. Leave them alone, especially reject the thought of combining them. Thirdly, options such as Nurse Navigator and ET3 are innovative approaches, but it will require a big cultural change on part of the residents. Yes, they can potentially avoid some unnecessary transport to the ER, but I agree with a statement that Gail Lazenby had said in a previous meeting. Our current above 65 generation, when we're having a health episode that requires us to call 911, we want a paramedic EMT on site, assess the situation, provide assurance and quick actions. But finally, as you deliberate, please focus on the ambulance issue and also work with ER departments on the offloading improvements. Keep the separation of two fire departments as is, and if it makes sense, give them more responsibility, such as been suggested with obtaining the transport functions under them. Remember, in the end, it's always about the patient. Responsive assessment, treatment, and saving lives. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, thank you for allowing us all to speak. My name is Kate Spagdis. Address is 1973 Durham Lane in Bonnybrook. I support the village's fire and rescue completely. We have enjoyed experiences then in a CERT program back in 07, I believe it was, after the tornado, and now AED in our neighborhood. We are on the AED team. We do not want the consolidation at all, and we do support having the ambulance service under the village's fire and rescue. And if needs be, make it independent. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Paul Ferrari. I am at 1166 Tall Pine Lane in Creekside Landing. Before I moved to the villages 4 years ago, I spent 8 years as a fire commissioner in Pinellas County in one of the 4 special fire districts, East Lake. So I know the ins and outs of East Lake's fire district and fire districts in general, and I'll close with a thought on that. But first, I wanted to say that I support option 9. I strongly support firefighter transport. In Pinellas County, our ambulance operator was Sunstar. That was operated by a firm in Dallas, Paramedics Plus. It was figuratively a sweetheart deal. Rather than being penalized for failures in response times, they were given bonuses for exceeding response times. And while that was always unclear, every year they got bonuses. It was a figuratively sweetheart deal. Here, as I've read the contract and understand things a little bit better, this is literally a sweetheart deal. At the last county commission meeting, several things happened. One of them was the amendments to the contract. The contract was amended to remove AMR from the 911 responsibilities and put that in the hands of the county. There was a savings of about $1.2, $1.3 million a year. However, what got maybe billing further down in the discussion was the fact that AMR was given additional relief and response times. I believe it was 10 minutes, but I'm not sure. I couldn't hear that well at the meeting. But basically, the county has told AMR, don't worry about it. If the fire department is there, take your time. We won't penalize you for an additional 10 minutes. Didn't think that made a whole lot of sense. I can answer the question. I didn't know the chief was not going to be able to do his presentation tonight until a gentleman in front of me said so. But I can answer why. At the county commission meeting, one of the county attorneys asked the board, the board of commissioners, can you have the support of the legal department
in helping better understand and put the chief's proposal into the hopper. The county commission chairman sat there and said no. And that was it. So after that, in my view, anything that our fire department wanted to say wouldn't happen or couldn't happen. An interesting thing with one of the commissioners that night, as this was all being discussed, said something that sounded a lot like this. So if we put 911 under the county, will they finally have and do background checks on these people? To me, I wondered, gee, aren't we doing that now? I don't know. I'm just telling you what I heard. And then lastly, we did have actually 3 of the commissioners came up to me after the meeting. One of them I know fully supports option 9. I did see him in the room tonight, but another one came up to me in a fairly condescending way, as if I didn't know anything about anything, and said, did you know? And then he proceeded to tell me a disparaging story about, sir.
Time's up, sir. Look, we're here to listen. We will listen, but there are other people there that I'd like to hear too. Just like the county meeting.
So my name is Nathan Dogger. I live at 1318 Quill Court in Fernandina. Kind of confused. I used to audit fire departments. This consolidations were always done whenever the service area was intended for a quicker response with another service area. So you had a district that was expanding so large that they couldn't manage it. Typically what happened was the service area just expanded. So you have another service area that was already going in and servicing it. It seems like we're currently developing the villages. It's not something that's been around for 30 years. Area is not expanding. If we're not planning correctly, maybe we should look at the planning and say, hey, we should put these in better places. But this seems like a financial play that lacks transparency. And that's what we want. If we get better response times, if the firefighters are treated well, like we're all happy, right? But it seems like as the audits in Florida, which are not completely transparent, you don't have general firefighter department audits. You don't have these macro level audits within the industries that we can then see as a public. We can't judge any of this. So if all of our money gets pushed up into Sumter County and then you guys distribute it however you want, like that becomes an issue whenever it's a populace that is primarily residential that needs firefighters to actually support them. And now if more of our money is going somewhere else and it's not coming to the people that are actually paying it, it creates a really large problem. And I don't know what you guys are going to do. It seems like there's an overwhelming majority here that has a certain decision that they want you to make. It's kind of confusing why you wouldn't make that being elected officials, but you've got the I mean, if you guys
Can I just correct something quickly?
Go for it.
We are not elected officials.
Okay.
We're volunteers.
Okay. So then I'm really confused why you wouldn't follow this. If you guys are here to serve, I mean, that's even more reason, right? That's where I'm really confused, is your job is to serve if you're volunteers. Otherwise, we need to find volunteers that actually go towards what the populace wants. So that's all my thought. I really wish you would give the rest of the time to the other guy. He had numbers, and that's actually interesting. So I don't know if you'll give my minute and a half, 2 minutes to that guy after these guys are done, and we'll all have fun.
When it comes to time, that's up to the board, and it would have to be a consensus vote to grant additional.
How much time do I have?
We announced on the front end that somebody could finish something or come back a second time, but after people had a chance.
Awesome. So that works. Beautiful. Thank you.
My name is Bill Spagnas. I live at 1973 Durham Lane in the Villages. I'm here to support fire and rescue. And this is a prime example of what Ronald Reagan meant when he says, "Hi, I'm from the government and I'm here to help."
Hi, Ray Bidwell, 1575 Hartsfield Trail, the Villages. I've been at every one of these meetings. I've been to every one of the commissioner meetings when they appointed you guys. And each commissioner got to appoint one person, and that's how that came about. But so starting from the first meeting, the fire departments come up here and present how their departments run. And what do we find out? That the county fire chief had input into the 10 options, and the Villages Fire Department didn't have anything to do with it. You think that has anything to do with 5 of the options being getting rid of the Villages Fire Department? And then the next presentation was, Dr. Fitzpatrick. And so Dr. Fitzpatrick, he comes up here because he's the one who came up with the 10 solutions, does this great presentation. Maybe 25–30% of it came right out of a college textbook. There's no place like the Villages in the United States. There's not going to be a college textbook that has anything like the Villages. And I also asked if we had to pick from those 10 options, because those 10 options, I was told, no, you don't have to pick from those 10 options. But then at the end of the meeting, you guys all went down the line and you were still talking about the 10 options. Not one of those 10 options actually addresses the problem. So I'm all for throwing those options out and let's address the problem of the ambulance service time. And it's definitely not going to be by combining the fire department. It's not going to improve the ambulance service. And personally, when you guys do your discussion today, if you pick whatever option you pick, if you could please share with us why you think that option is going to help with the response time, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much for allowing us this time and your patience. My name is Mary Ann Mobilian. I live at 3735 Conservation Trail, which is in Lake County. Therefore, I have a big concern and a 2-part question. My understanding is that 5 of your 10 options propose eliminating the services of the Villages Fire Rescue Department for Sumter County. However, if this happens, it would cut most of the funding for the Villages Fire Rescue, making it practically impossible for them to continue service to the 2 other counties, Lake and Marion, they currently serve. Since this would directly impact Lake and Marion County residents, have you contacted and/or included Lake County commissioners, Fruitland Park commissioners, Leesburg commissioners, Lady Lake commissioners in this decision process? It is vital. This decision will not just impact Sumter County. It will impact all of the villages. It will take away vital services that we all count on. I have been a recipient of those services. My husband needed me to call them. They were there, Villages was there within 2 minutes. It took forever for the rest of them to show up. So I know what they provide. I also understand that Chief Kane has expressed his recommendation when asked by your committee that option 9 was the best recommendation because it was a symbiotic relationship between Sumter County and the villages. And that has pretty much been taken off the table. I'd like to know why. I would also like to know why he is not talking tonight about another proposal. Since you are here to look at all options, why are we not looking at 191 Fire District as a proposal on this agenda? I truly hope, gentlemen, I understand you're volunteering, but please hear us. This decision is vital to all of us, all of the villagers. And I just want to say to the villages, fire rescue department, thank you and God bless you.
Good evening. My name is Keith Blanchard. I live at 5678 Zebra Long Wing Path, the village of Finney. Thank you guys for volunteering. I saw your experience, and I think you had a very good cross section of experience in firefighting, EMS, business, etc. I'd like you to think of a couple things when you look at these proposals. In years of business, one of the areas of lowest productivity and the most turmoil is when businesses merge. That is a painful time, and it takes years to get things settled. People don't want to work for the new company, they leave, you have staffing, etc. Think of those when you look at any of those options about combining fire departments. It's the same whether it's fire departments or business. Secondly, the other aspect of business that frustrates all of us is being handed off. Whether it's your customer service on the phone, you're put on hold, hand it to a third party, that frustrates all of us. Think of that in response to your medical. When you have an EMT on a fire truck show up, they can transport as one group. You don't wait for a second party to come in and that handoff to happen. That is critical to me. As a resident, that is a concern. Secondly, in response to the whole issue of the medical response from the ambulance service, AMR has over 480 complaints in the last 3 years in the Better Business Bureau. Think of that when you look at these proposals. Think of that company that is a for-profit company. Their job is to make a profit for their owners or their shareholders. They're not there to serve the public. Putting ambulance transport under our fire departments of Sumter County and the villages is going to put them responsible to us and to the commission. That is key in my eyes as a resident here. If it was my loved one or one of you laying on the side of the road needing a transport and you had to wait 30 minutes, I don't think any of us would be happy about that. So we've got to change the narrative of what are we doing to fix a problem that's not there. Let's fix the medical transport problem. Put that somewhere that it can be handled appropriately and not with an outside for-profit company. Thank you.
Jack Suffield, 6046 Delphina Loop in the Villages. I'd like to mention that I attended the last meeting and Chief Kane offered to AMR to offered to AMR to house their cars, their equipment, and their people in the firehouse. Remember we discussed that at the last meeting? It was discussed. Well, why is AMR not taking it? I mean, how do we know we're getting what we're paying for? I mean, if you can't count the cars where they are, then how do you know they're in the offices? If they were stationed at our facility, what are they trying to hide? Are we getting what we're paying for? Because companies, all they want to do is make profit and cut corners. Why did they refuse a generous offer to house their vehicles and their personnel at those fire districts in the villages? As a senior citizen, this is, before anything else, the most important thing to us here in the villages, and I'm surprised the Morse family hasn't done so. I just want to say something, it's on a personal note. My wife had to go to emergency room about 2 weeks ago. She didn't know whether she had appendicitis or gallbladder. Do you know when she went there, they couldn't have a room for her in a hospital because all the hospitals are code black. You could not get any, there was no beds available because of COVID. So the most important thing right now is, are we getting what we're paying for from AMR? And when evidently we're not, and I've heard a lot of complaints from my fellow neighbors. So that's where I'm at. And thank you very much. And thank you, board.
Hello and thank you. My name is Robert Meffin and I'm a firefighter.
I'm not a public speaker. I'm a public servant. I've worked for the Village's Fire Rescue for nearly 10 years. I've saved many lives and I've witnessed many tragedies. I have had opportunities to leave for other departments, but I chose to stay. I have planned my career, my life, and my retirement around the Village's Fire Rescue. I love this community. I love my job. I do not support any takeover by Sumter County. I stand with Chief Kane and ask that you do too. I have worked successfully and professionally side by side with Sumter County Fire. They are not the problem. We are not the problem. Lack of proper ambulance services and ability to transport to the hospital in a timely manner is the problem. Just last weekend, my station's QRV was dispatched, not emergent, for a fall. In minutes, my guys were knocking on the front door of the 911 caller's house, ready to help. While on scene awaiting an ambulance, my crew was hard at work, doing their job, upholding their oath to protect and serve. My crew determined this patient fell because they were weak. This patient was weak because their blood pressure was low. This patient's blood pressure was low because they had an abnormal heart rhythm. My crew recognized the need for immediate transport to the hospital, and they requested the ambulance respond emergent to the scene. My crew was told by dispatch, there is no ambulance. Mutual aid in all surrounding counties have declined. We will let you know if one becomes available. 1 hour and 11 minutes later, an ambulance was assigned to this call. 26 minutes and 49 seconds after that, the ambulance arrived on scene. Now I've done the math for you. That's 1 hour, 44 minutes, and 50 seconds after 911 was dialed for an ambulance to show up on scene. Remember, the Village's Fire Rescue was there in minutes, but AMR's data won't reflect that. AMR will use the Village's Fire Rescue response time to justify their deficiency. As a company officer, it is my responsibility to be the voice for my crew. I watched this call unfold, monitored its progress from my fire station. Myself and my driver sat in our fire truck. We shook our heads in silence. There is no need to speak when together you understand how bad this situation has become. An hour passed, another 20 minutes, another 20 minutes. Finally, as I watched AMR's GPS tracker slowly move across my computer screen, they drove by my fire station with no lights, no sirens, non-emergent. When you call for help in the villages, we answer. This kind of response from the ambulance service responsible for transporting your loved ones to the hospital is criminal. I am asking that if you do not see the collusion, if you are not aware of the conflict of interest, if you do not realize the nepotism surrounding this issue, the gravity of this situation, please open your eyes and speak out. We need your support. Our families need your support. Now, please stand up and support the Village's Fire Rescue and Chief Kane, and do not let Sumter County Fire Rescue take us over. I'm Lieutenant Robert Meffin, and I'm only one of the Village's 172 stories. Thank you.
Good
Good evening. My name is Stuart Eubanks. I'm a paramedic here in Sumter County, and I work for the transport service. Thank you for that, by the way. A few weeks ago, I came before this committee and I presented you with not excuses, but explanations. I let you know that we were making progress towards fixing our deficiencies. I've heard something thrown around a couple times tonight. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, guess what? We're broke. We know we're broke. We know we're in a bad place. We're fixing it. We're fixing it. Over the last 6 months, the local union that represents the EMS workers has worked diligently alongside of AMR to improve working conditions for our people. We've worked diligently to improve the wages that we offer to the paramedics and EMTs that service this community. A lot of you folks weren't here for those previous meetings, and it's unfortunate that you weren't. There was a lot of good data that was presented. Equally, you would have heard me tell you that we managed to get our EMTs a 70% wage increase. Our medics saw a 58% wage increase. We've been competitively recruiting from outside areas. Earlier this week, I saw a news article run referring to Lake County EMS. Their operations manager got on there and said they were down 56 EMS providers. This is not an issue that is exclusive to Sumter County. It is an issue that has been spawned by COVID over the last 18 months. And we are aware that this is a problem. It continues to be a problem. Many people here tonight have equally said that the hospitals are inundated, that they are overwhelmed. But when the hospitals get inundated and overwhelmed, guess who else gets inundated and overwhelmed? The EMS community. We are the ones that sit there with your loved ones on the wall for 2, 3, even 4 hours, trying to keep them comfortable as we wait to place them in a bed, knowing full well that 911 calls are coming in that we cannot respond to because we're staying at the hospitals, caring for your loved ones. It's unfortunate that we find ourselves having the discussions that we're having right now. I wish that there hadn't been issues that we've seen. I wish that we could go back and wave a magic wand at the beginning of 2020 and not have suffered through what we just suffered through and what we continue to suffer through right now. Your EMS workers are out there day in and day out, giving every bit of themselves to this community, whether you see it or whether you don't see it. I've watched my coworkers fall ill. I've watched my coworkers walk away from EMS as a whole, simply because of the strain that the last 18 months has placed on them. It's unfortunate that we are where we are, but we're working diligently to get to someplace better. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Justin Boudreau. I'm a village firefighter. Been working here for coming up on 8 years. Work hand in hand actually with Stuart and some of the other individuals that have worked at AMR. A lot of them have left. I will say that there has been a lot of strain. I definitely recognize that. I know at one point last year, they were down to 15 to 17 road paramedics. So that they have changed a little bit, a lot, I should say, with their pay. But I'm here to think about different options. I know you've had a lot of things. This man over here comes from Pinellas County. I drive 72 miles to work every day. I came up here tonight after going home. So I've put in some miles today. Pinellas County, where I'm around, they have, I think, 22 fire departments there in that county. They all have different rescue units. Okay, Sunstar does do all their transport, but when they're over 20 minutes, guess what? Fire department transports. It's a backup system. I don't understand why we can't do something like that. This is options that are out there in the real world that we could actually be doing. We would just need to do that. Now, I also contacted my insurance company. Why? Because my mom worked for an insurance company for 27 years. My wife still works for an insurance company. When I make major life decisions, I like to talk to them. ISO rating in Hillsborough County, where I live, if I were to drop another ISO point, my insurance would go up $457. Sumter County currently in the villages is an ISO of 2. We're working on 1. Fire department's working on getting you guys to 1. We want to lessen your insurance. But the way I understand it, the way I've looked at it, if we were absorbed into Sumter County, you would drop to a 3. Lake and Marion County would go to a 4. So that's a lot of insurance money. Contact your insurance companies like I did, ask them what that would look like under in. The reason I drove up here tonight is I have lost my job in the past. I don't prefer to lose my job. I like it, my job. I like working for the villages. I like working for you guys. You are my customers. With that, if we went under the current Sumter County plan, my guess is we would lose our QRVs, you would lose most of the fire stations. And well, you say you know, but we don't know. I'm looking at a worst case scenario, looking at 8 to maybe 9 units being 2-man staff. You're looking at a 70 to 100 person reduction in the current village's fire department. That's just my math. If I'm wrong, hopefully I am, but I also don't want to go down that road. All right, you guys, yes, are the expertise. With the current AMR new amendment contract, had nothing to do with you. One of the things that really gets me is they want to work on time. I understand that, but starting October 1, we no longer do everything in the back. Meaning we go to a call. Let's say you're a STEMI alert. Okay, you're having a heart attack, suspected heart attack. We use nitroglycerin, we use aspirin, we use dots, we use electric pads, we do all that fun stuff. Now with the newest current contract, again, you had nothing to do with this. We have to wait on scene after loading you up in the back of the ambulance and get all those supplies from the ambulance. How we're going faster with this, I'm not sure. Let's say it's a cardiac arrest. We drive to the hospital. Now I'm at the hospital taking supplies off a unit. What if it's their last BVM? What if it's their last cardiac pads? Are they going to go out of service? Let me ask you this. Is it ethically and morally right, actually legally right, to take aspirin out of one vial and put it into a different one? What if it's nitroglycerin? You can't do that. We've already run the numbers. They're not replacing our PPE after October 1. We're going to lose $60,000 just in gloves alone because of the new amended AMR contract. I'm not sure how we're going forward if this is happening. Again, this is nothing on you. So again, these are things to look at and consider. I'm not sure why all this is going on, but I'm sure it has something to do with money. Thanks for the time. We'll catch you later. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Bob Kane. I'm the president of the FDNY 343 Memorial Club in the village. I live at 17820 Southeast 86 Oak Leaf Terrace. I'm not here to speak about widgets and money and bandages. I'm here to speak about everyone in gold shirts. I want to make sure that everybody's aware of the fact that they wear that Maltese cross on there, and that is a gift. That's a calling. That's not a paycheck. In 27 years in the New York City Fire Department, I've seen people perform at levels that they only write in Marvel comic books. And children look at that and say, they're heroes? Here's the heroes, right here. You fool around with a dedicated department like the villages in Sumter County. I spoke to probies going into both of those counties. They're incredible. What do we speak about? War stories? No. We speak about the brotherhood of a Maltese cross, what it means that have that. What do we do as firefighters? As firefighters, we're given a mission. Here's your manpower. What's the answer? Get it done. I've seen people go down a hallway 50, 100 feet, 3 people on a line, going into an apartment that they didn't even know anybody was there, and then take out 4 people. These men here have developed a career and a dedication that money cannot buy. They've worked forever. They work in this New York, in the village fire department. I see them every day. And you know, yesterday I went to an open house and I stood there and I saw neighbors come up and say, ask them questions. And they'd say, well, why do you go to Publix to buy food? And I'm standing there and these young men and women are walking by me. And I saw every single one of them that looked like one of my brothers that went into the towers. And why do I say that? Because I could take 5 and 6 of those firefighters that I met yesterday and take them into the towers, because they train every day for the towers. They don't train every day for the mundane things that they do with excellence every single day. They train for the towers. Just because you don't have a 100-story building, that day will come. Whether it's an air crash or whatever, that day will come. And they spend every single day unifying their teamwork, learning for what they're doing, and able to complete their mission on the orders of those officers that were developed in that fire service. So whatever you do, do not fool around with tradition and history. Because we accomplish great things in the fire service because we stand on the brothers and now sisters that have gone before us. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'm assuming that concludes, I guess not.
Terry Beals, I live in the village of Dunedin on Valley Brook Way. I just wanted to say on Saturday, I believe there were 17 phone calls by about 2:30 in the afternoon made for emergency service, and there were, out of the 17, 6 were told that there were no ambulances. So if you were at a rec center at that time and you had a cardiac arrest, there was no ambulance for you available. So I don't think people realize, out in the villages how serious this is until we need them. About 10 years ago, Mr. Arnold picked AMR to be our service, despite Chief Tucker and also Chief of the, I just want to get these names right, excuse me. Chief Tucker of the villages and Chief Gilbrand and of Sumter County. Both advised him to select rural metro over AMR because they knew of the problems even at that time with AMR. But he still selected AMR. I know in one thing that I read, you said that there are many medical experts this committee can go to, and I do appreciate you volunteering. But you have so many experts right in this community. Our chief, Lieutenant Longacre, so many people that you can go to. I don't see going outside how they can really advise you. Also, I just wanted to bring up, we're not talking about the specific people who are working on the ambulances for AMR. We're talking about the company. Okay, and if you go back to 2018, they keep blaming the pandemic. If you go back to 2018 in DeKalb County, Georgia, okay, they got disposed of AMR because of a history of poor service complaints and a 1.9 million in contract penalties. Please do your research, okay? You can go on many consumer sites. Out of 5, AMR is rated 1.4 on one that I referred to. I did my own research. There are many, I think in San Diego, just recently, they terminated their service with AMR because of the poor response times. I think when we look at this situation, we have to realize we don't want a nurse navigator. We don't want to be dropped off at an urgent care and wait another 5 hours for another ambulance. So please take into consideration, if this is you or somebody you love, what you would want to happen at that time. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Would the Secretary of the Union please come up for his presentation? Oh.
Hi, my name is Sue Horton. I live at 648 Ravenel Court in Belvedere. As you can tell, I'm super nervous. I don't have anything written down, so I'm just winging it. I have lots of things on my mind. My husband was a career firefighter in New Jersey. He was a captain for 29 years. So I know the ins and outs of the fire department and the ambulance service that we had in our town. And the politics that goes on. And they asked him many, many times to be chief. But he refused because he said he wouldn't play politics. It was not the job. It's not the job that he loved, that he lived for. The ambulance, the fire department was top notch. We had a lot of tank storage farms. We had a chemical barge that exploded and blew up. There was a lot of danger in the town, and it was a very populated community. So these guys knew their stuff. They were trained in many, many different avenues of fire safety. The biggest problem they had was with the ambulance service. The firemen were also first responders. They were all trained. The ambulance worked well for many, many years, and then it started to fizzle out. They couldn't get manpower, or they wouldn't show up. It got so severe that the firefighters had to drive the ambulance. And that's pretty sad, because you don't want things like that happening. But anyway, we had, my husband fell on our driveway, and he fell backwards and his head hit the concrete. And I heard it. I was running after him. The blood started gushing down the driveway. And I called 911, and they told me to lift his head off the ground, to hold his head. So my best memories of my husband were his warm blood pulsating in my hands. Within minutes, the fire department and EMTs, paramedics, they arrived, and they worked on him quickly, and they did everything that they could for him. And then Shirley, one of the firefighter paramedics, she came over to me because she knew that I was in distress, and that it wasn't just my husband going through this, but I was going through it too. And she was there for me, and she took care of me. And she went and checked on my husband at the hospital. She came to my home and checked on me to make sure I was okay. I mean, this is a firefighter who cares about people, who's doing the job that she dedicated her life to. Which is what all of those guys who were there, they did. They worked so hard, so quickly, so feverishly on them. They rushed him to Ocala, to the trauma center, and 2 days later he passed. And they said he would have been a vegetable because he had 70% brain bleed and his brain shifted from the fall. So that was our experience with the fire department here. About a year later, after my husband was gone, I fell out of bed. And I was sweating profusely, and I was too embarrassed to call for help. So I sat on the floor for 2 hours like this. Finally, I couldn't do it anymore, so I called 911. In about 3 or 4 minutes, they were here. And thanks to my crazy son-in-law, I've got Alexa all over my house. So they were able to get in my front door. I had the lights turned on for them. Everything was perfect. They came in. I thought I was just being picked up off the floor. It turned out, like I said, my clothes were soaked, everything. I was sweating that much. They did an EKG immediately, and my blood pressure was 60/40. and they told me I was going CER. I said, I don't want to. They said, you don't have a choice. And I got there. And it turned out I had double pneumonia and I had a severe UTI. Now, thanks to these guys and their knowledge and their experience in getting here so quick, I don't know what could happen to me too. They're dedicated, they're loyal, and they are so highly trained. Again, Angeles, I'm sorry, they're a major problem. If you don't have to, I mean, these firefighters and paramedics, another thing, my daughter is not RN, and I told her.
Time's up.
Okay, now my daughter's an RN. There is no way an RN can tell you, she could tell, I could have told her I fell on the floor, and she could have told me, oh, we'll get a neighbor to pick you up. And what was wrong with me? That wouldn't have worked. These firefighters are heroes. There are heroes, and they should be praised. All of you firefighters, paramedics, and EMTs, thank you for your service and stay safe.
All right, I'm gonna close public comment now, and if the union secretary would please come up, we'd appreciate it. Thank you for waiting, sir. Mrs. Smith, do we have paper copies by any chance? Because it's difficult to see. Okay. Thank you.
All right, first off, thank you, gentlemen, for letting me present this evening. Like I said, I've been working with the IFF at the state level and the national level to put together a complete presentation for you guys. What I have this evening here is just an outline. It's just some quick data points and some discussion of current services. What I can do is, as soon as I get the full proposal that they're working tirelessly on, I can send it over to you. This is just a link that they sent me with the ongoing. So the actual presentation, the study they do is quite lengthy. This is just a quick talking points.
Perhaps this presentation, though, when you're done, maybe tomorrow, send it to Mrs. Smith and she'll distribute what you're going to show tonight to us.
I'll get with because the IFF owns this, it's password protected. They let me log in. So if they can give me a copy, I'll pass on to you. So do you have the, am I able to scroll down a bit, or do I got to run over my Okay. Let me scroll down a little bit. So I can start to talk about this. Thank you, Nathan. This first part just addresses the history of the villages, which everyone is pretty well aware of in this room. Some of the little talking points I had at the beginning here, just to clarify, the purpose of this presentation is to provide the committee with data to show why Villages Fire Rescue is best suited to provide emergency medical transport services. The Villages Fire Rescue currently provides advanced life support, first response, and treatment for EMS calls. Therefore, a transition to providing transport services would indeed be seamless. In the presentation here, one of the highlights is that we are an all hazards department. And the term all hazards refers to the fact that no matter what the call for service is, whether it's an EMS call, fire, vehicle accident, or the ever famous ducks in a drain, we are going to respond to that call. And we are going to treat it with the proper response and the proper outcome. So the Villages Fire Rescue has resources to ensure the best care possible for the citizens or visitor to the area. One agency, The village's fire rescue would be responsible for the continuity of patient care by providing transport EMS with an all hazards response model. Talking more about the US Census and the geographic and the strategic location of the fire department. So within the village's fire rescue stations are all geographically and strategically located throughout the community, which the main goal of that is to minimize response and, should the day arise, transport times. So the 9 fire stations cover over 55, it's ever growing, square miles and over 140,000 residents. The fire department, which this has been brought up tonight, responds to not only Sumter, but also Lake and Marion counties. The station I am actually assigned to resides in Lake County. Station 43 sits within the boundaries of Lake County. If you pull out of my station and go to the intersection of 441 and Morse or Boone, depending on which side you're on, that is the Lake Sumter line. So I respond in both counties with both different EMS agencies. You can go ahead and scroll down a little bit, sir. And you'll pass it. Thank you. So, US Census has ranked the villages as the fastest growing US city for the 2nd year in a row. This is based off of the previous 2019-2020 data. So build upon this is what we want to do. The population grows, so does call volume year over year. I believe the data that we analyzed here with the IFF showed a 12.5% increase year over year of call volume. Now I will do a bit of a disclaimer. All this data that the IFF is providing here is based on 2019 data because that was the most complete data we had. Everyone knows that 2020's data is somewhat wonky just because of COVID and everything. So 2019 data was what they chose to analyze just based upon the more accurate nature of the data. Yeah, you can leave it right there. So with the fire department having the capability to transport, there will no longer be a delay waiting on scene for a transport ambulance. I myself have been on several calls that the ambulance has taken an extended response. I have been there when there have been no ambulances, there's been no mutual aid. I spent an hour and a half with a 90-year-old lady with a clean medical history, and I watched her on the monitor on my life pack go from a normal heart rhythm into a full-blown stenting. I sat there with an hour and a half and watched her have a heart attack. All I could do was talk to her husband, and administer the appropriate care per our protocols. I could not put her in my fire truck. I couldn't land a helicopter. It was thought of. Because we were in the villas, there was no way we could access that. So, touching on the recent changes that many people have mentioned tonight, effective October 1 of 2021, Sumter County agreed to the following provision with AMR in section 22, subsection C5. Should Sumter County Fire or Villages Public Safety arrive on scene prior to AMR, AMR will be granted an additional 5 minutes to its response time obligations. So that nice lady that I met would have had to wait another 5 or more minutes without any sort of repercussion. This means that your loved one could be waiting up to 5 minutes longer for transport, creating an additional delay. And we'll go ahead and touch on these maps if you want to scroll down a little bit. So this is one of the reasons I can't really download this. This is an interactive map that the IFF GIS department has put together. And what you see on the left there is our population density map. The colored zone reflects the response boundaries of the village's fire rescue at that time. You'll see the north end is a lot darker color than the south end, being that the south end is still being developed. And the map on the right actually relates to risk categories. And just a brief overview of those. The risk category is based upon the amount of people living in that area who are greater than 65 or live with a disability. The dark color would indicate the higher risk. The neon pink there would be your medium risk. As you see, we're moving further south, and that little lightish pink, that's actually mostly the city of Adamsville, if I'm looking at it correctly. And that would be the lower risk, given that that is a non-age restricted area. And what that shows is that we respond to areas that are higher risk populations. I'm going to scroll down a little bit. And those are all divided into our different zones for our different stations. Okay, this part right here just shows that our total call volume for 2019 was at 23,034. The 19,000 number you're seeing there is urban incidents. Go ahead and scroll down some more, sir. Thank you. Response time performance. Over on the left, you see a heat map of the village's response area that's based upon our 2019 responses in the different zones. You also see the peak hours of call volume. You see overnight, it kind of lulls, but definitely doesn't stop. And it peaks up during the day. And I just want to touch on, before we get into run times and such like that, the NFPA 1710, just explain what that is to everybody, is a nationally accepted set of standards that's established through scientific research, real world tests, and decades of experience conducted by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, also known as NIST laboratories. The village's fire department already utilizes 1710 as its response and staffing industry standard. Not a substandard goal of 10 minutes for suburban, 15 for rural, 20 minutes for alpha, and 30 minutes for wilderness, which are not based upon anything to our knowledge. Those were just the times that were in the contract that was agreed upon with the county and AMR. NFPA 1710 is the industry standard for fire and EMS response and does not discern between geographical designation or the acuity of the call. According to NFPA 1710, the arriving unit with a first responder or AED must be there within 4 minutes. We don't run first responders. We run the ALS units, which the travel time should be less than 8 minutes, or they actually go by seconds, which you'll see everything in here is in seconds. So it should be less than 480 seconds. And you can go ahead and scroll down some more there. That's more just data disbursement on the graph there that shows time of day and day of week. Yep, so that over there on the left, UHU. I've actually heard committee member Bo mention this a few times. So that current UHU of 0.5, and UHU is a unit hour utilization. It's a metric used to determine the amount of time an ambulance, or in this case, a rescue crew, is responding to, treating, and transporting a patient. So the UHU does not account for training, restocking, training, physical fitness, documentation, stuff like that. We must note these UHUs, however, are based on that 2019 call data. With an average increase of 12.3%, you would have to take into account that the past 2 years, the call volume would have increased. Yeah, scroll down. The map on the right is, again, the village's fire response area. And what those are is showing individual call areas where calls are coming from based upon that, that risk. Or scroll down a little bit more for me. Yes, the risk categories. So as you can see, the majority of them are the high or medium risk, with some of the gray ones as the outliers, which appear to mostly be responses out into Sumter County. And come down some more. You can go to that next set with the bar graph. Okay, this is our rescue and attack units response to EMS incidents. So this takes out all other kinds of incidents. The most interesting one, just to summarize that for you, is the one on the right, where the IFF has taken all the GIS call data and basically looked at where the most appropriate staffing for EMS transport units would be. As you can see, there's 8 little teal dots, and those correspond pretty perfectly with where our stations are located. You will see there's one station without one, station 46 in the city of Coleman. Again, 2019 call data would have to be adjusted. That's what this is based on. They recommended 8 ambulances with being the minimum. However, with the full report that I'll be sending you gentlemen, they'll be putting more factors into it, such as transport times and stuff like that. Correct, that's where those stations lie. So that top one with the greenish around it, that's station 43 right there. That one sits in Lake County, but it's still villages and responds to a significant portion of Sumter County. So all the hospital area, everything off El Camino and the north end of the Morse would be covered with that, all the way up to the Marion County line. Again, that's where the issue comes in with, we don't just respond in Sumter County. We have a lot of area in Lake and a lot more area coming in Lake. But the IFF is just looking based upon what our current outline is. Moving on, we're going to talk about the transition. Should the villages take over EMS response, it'll be a smooth transition because we'll be utilizing most likely the current quick response vehicles or rescues to change them to transport ambulances. We'll be able to provide service to the community from the initial arrival on the scene through the delivery of patient to the definitive care. Basically what that speaks to is there's not one unit arriving on scene, taking patient care, handing it off to somebody else, handing it off to somebody else, handing it off to somebody else, because it's documented that that's where you lose information. It's a game of telephone, basically.
You had conversations with Aaron and Lake County, how do you with a transport aid, DOPCN?
So we already have the non-transport ones. Yeah, I'm just speaking on this part. That would be something for the administrative staff. It wouldn't be proper for me to go asking. They'd probably ask who I was. So just an overview here, fire-based EMS systems are service and outcome driven, focused on quality care measures, patient outcomes, community save rates, event to treatment times for sensitive conditions such as heart attacks, trauma, and strokes. In addition, fire department personnel are well acquainted with their first due and understand the needs of the community, including those related to EMS response, treatment, and transport. I know my zone. I've worked there for the majority of my 7 years. I know the ins and outs, and I know a lot of the people in that zone. This goes for every station and every crew who's been there for a significant time. Fire service EMTs and medics are sworn to protect the community they serve, enjoying an excellent reputation and credibility with the community, as is demonstrated here tonight. Thank you all for coming out. And having the entire EMS system under the fire department, including transport, allows for local control of service delivery, operations, recruitment, and hiring of employees. The fire department, whether it's answering to the county, the district, the fire district, whoever, that is who sets the standards. If their standards are low, then they're raised up. Firefighters can work more hours in a week before being paid overtime. That's, I wouldn't call it cost saving hours, but a private EMS is paid overtime after 40 hours per FLSA. We as a fire department under our current contract are 53 hours before we go into an overtime rate. It's worth mentioning. With the village's fire department adding patient transport, this will allow any revenue generated by the EMS transport to stay within the fire department's budget, which would then enhance delivery of services. Fire departments generally have a very low turnover rate, and we are proud to say that ours has been low for the past few years. We did have issues when I first started, but we've addressed those. And currently, average length of employment is around 7 years for a department that's only 21 years old. That's pretty good in my book. And we currently actually have 7 open positions, and we already have near 20 applications for those. So we don't have an issue hiring. We filled all of the positions that we had previously posted for, and the current one's only been open about a month. So we do not have a problem with recruiting or retaining employees. You can continue to scroll down. Those are more, those speak more to the on-scene times. You can see our average, scroll up just a touch for them, please. The 420 seconds, everything's in seconds when it comes to NFPA 1710. You can see those bar graphs on the left respond to, or are all those different rescues. The 420 seconds being our average, with the only one being over being a TAC 45. And again, this is 2019 call data. That was a more rural station, and it has a larger zone. So if you continue to scroll down, that 0.5 unit hour utilization, again, it shows that you want to be at about 0.3, so we're just above where you want to be. And other than that, I can answer any questions, but a little disclaimer again, I'm not the one who put it together. I've got my talking points, and I've worked with the IAFF about all the data. They're still working on the full presentation, which, like I said, as soon as it hits my email, it'll be forwarded right to Ms. Smith. And I'll actually, they asked me to call them on my way home and let them know how it went. So I'll do my best to address the questions, but be gentle.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to note that when you try to send it, I know if there's an issue because there's interactive graphs.
Yeah.
If you could try to do screenshots of those graphs just so that I can make sure to distribute it to the committee members and then include it as part of the record.
Yep. Gentlemen,
Do we have any questions?
When do you believe that this graph will reflect 2020?
so the data we submitted to them was everything we had for 2018, 19, 20. 2021 was incomplete. 2020, the data that they're looking at, and from what they've done with other departments, the data is just so many outliers and everything from the way it was explained to me that it doesn't accurately reflect. It doesn't reflect all the work that was done those previous years, where if you had a normal year in 2020, you would have continued that trend. So I can ask if they're going to include it. I do know the EMS study that they're working on is normally fairly long and inclusive. But I can ask if that is something. This was just something where I wanted to get something to you guys as soon as possible for you to digest instead of just waiting on them to bring us the whole thing, and they were able to oblige us and give us this.
I'm not finding fault with this at all. I'm not finding fault with this.
Yeah.
Just asking the question, because frankly, when our EMS provider came here, they dumped everything they had up until, I believe it was May of this year, response time. Fair is fair, apples to apples. And I'm not saying that there is a problem, there isn't a problem. I'm just asking if we're gonna start comparing or showing what we can do with an EMS system. I'd like it to be apples for apples.
Right. I believe when the fire department administration came up, they presented data in theirs about 2020. So don't hold me to it because I don't have a copy of it. But what I can do is reach out to the individuals who are putting this together and ensure that there's 2020 data included in there in some form. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you for your time. Thank you, everybody, for coming out.
Okay, now we're going to get into some discussion, and I'd like to suggest to my colleagues that we deal with this in a
Chairman, just 1 second. The next item on the agenda is the minutes.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. I want to deal with what we're doing on a more organized basis rather than just kind of throwing things back and forth. If somebody gets ready to make a motion, let's make a motion. If there's a second, we'll then proceed with discussion. When discussion's over, we'll take a vote on that particular motion. Okay, we might take a little break in a second, but I want to get done with this first. Something that's not seconded doesn't proceed. It has to proceed a second before we can take a motion on it. Any discussion on that? Okay, let's wait for Gail to come back and then we'll
Chairman,
proceed.
you can ask for a brief recess. Just for a few minutes.
Yeah, we'll take a brief recess until Leland is back. I'm sorry.
We'll check out.
We are going to be discussing things tonight, though. Be seated, please. Recess is over. Please be seated. And I'm going to start with a motion of my own. And I'm going to tackle the elephant in the room. I want to propose that I make a motion that we remove all consideration of any option that has a consolidated department. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Discussion?
No discussion.
Discussion?
No discussion, let's vote.
All in favor, raise your hands. Okay, we've officially dropped thought about a consolidated department. What now?
Are they opposed or are they abstaining?
Does it make a difference? No. It's it. All opposed, say aye.
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 Opposed. We were in favor. They didn't raise their hands and I didn't give them a chance. So if you're opposed to that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Now, we have for our schedule, and I'm not saying that we need to stick to that schedule, other than we need to make sure we get stuff to the county board of county commissioners on a timely basis. Our next meeting is the 18th, which is 2 weeks from tonight. And I'd like to see us perhaps get serious about some other stuff too. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
You have a motion you'd like to make?
Well, I'd like to continue some discussion. We've heard a lot of concern and complaints about the issue we're here is regarding the ambulance service. And so what's the pleasure of this group to pass on to the Board of County Commissioners our recommendation of what should occur? I would move that, looking at everything that we've looked at and looking at the issues, and we are told to look at this issue for Sumter County. And I understand the nuances of what we're dealing with. It's greater than Sumter County, but that was not our task. And that's something that the county commissioners will have to deal with. But my view is, when we look at the situation, what we're dealing with, I don't agree with any of the 10 options that were provided. Because part of the issue is, I think we've got a good position with, and looking at the hospital side, looking at UF as medical direction. No matter what's going on right now in the hospital services and everything else, when you have that hospital-based medical direction, the experience and the latitude and the opportunities that it gives your organization is huge. I think what they're doing right now is a good aspect. I think also the other aspects of trying to reduce those ancillary issues related to the overall transport issue. Like some of us that have talked to other organizations throughout the state and identified different problems that they're having with their transport agencies, the same things come up. You know, hospital delays, finding staff. All these things are not unique to AMR, Rural Metro, anyone, American Ambulance, anyone that's doing it. Anyone who's doing ambulance transport is going to have these problems. When the county decided to contract out ambulance services originally, I was part of that mix and helped put that contract together with Chief Tucker and with Chief Branson. And I think what the county did at that time was the right thing to do. The county had no experience, it had staff and could not do transport. Over the years, things have changed, and the county is countywide, and I'm not looking at agencies, but I'm looking at Sumter County generically has grown and improved in what its abilities are. I think that the best for Sumter County citizens as a whole is for Sumter County to manage that ambulance transport service. How Sumter County, I mean, I have my own personal ideas of how that should be done, but I think it should be done directly under the county. That way the county has direct control. They can't blame outside entities. That's one of the downsides I see of the option that had UF contracting out the transport service. Now you have 2 layers of a contract. If the county handles it themselves, it takes care of that issue. You only have one place to go and place blame. That's on those that you elect. I think some of the issues with this is it moves forward is the county has to decide what level of service they want to provide. As we've all talked about, the better level of service that you provide is going to be more costly. The struggles that AMR has talked about that they've evidently fixed at this point is through increased wages. The county would have to be prepared to address those type of issues, to make sure they have the personnel to do that. The issue with segregating your transport service is just not a good idea, and I looked at the report that, IFF, I looked at the issue that we had originally when we had Lake Sumter EMS. I looked at the transport plan that we have right now. The smaller an area that you try to cover with ambulances, the greater problems you're going to have. I looked a few years back, there were other 8 entities around this county that were looking at possibly doing their own transport. They realized in a smaller area, it creates problems. I don't care if you have 8 ambulances. I don't care if you have 50 ambulances. There's going to be a time in a day when you have 0 ambulances. It's just going to happen. The idea that we'll guarantee that'll never happen, you can't do that. I mean, it's just impossible. We like to say that. And if people tell you that, they're lying. But people have good intentions, but things happen in the systems. So the greater area and resources that you have to pull from, the better coverage you're going to have overall. So those 8 units that were shown in the IFF presentation, that makes sense to cover at those time of days and give that coverage for response time. But now take that day when 6 or 7 or 8 of those ambulances are sitting at the hospital. Now what do you have? You have 0. Now granted, the report's not done, I understand, and they will recommend more than that. I understand that. But that's why you want to expand that out. That's why it makes more sense to have a countywide approach to this than just 2 individual areas approach to this. We know that the villages continues to grow, and we know that Sumter County continues to grow on the outside of the villages. And if you have a single focus at that from the county level, that could be managed and it could be looked at, and that would be a priority. There's positives to that if it was under the county, how they manage that, that's going to be up to them. But talk about career tracks that was talked about. You now have employees that work for a county government. There are other options to employ within a county government in an agency such as that side. So you help those issues out. So I would recommend from the ambulance side or the transport side, since we seem to be kind of wanting to divvy these up, is that I'd make a recommendation that the county be the provider of transport EMS as a countywide service and continue to utilize and or explore those other options like they talked about, ET3, Nurse Navigator, and those issues, because in the future, those things are going to be what's needed to make this survive. But in that process, they need to make sure that we keep the overall system, the response to citizens is the #1 priority, and make sure that there's a lot of transparency in how that's done. Because in that transparency is where you're going to see if you're actually getting this response that you're promised. You know, when you put a plan in place, the plan may be 15 ambulances, but after the first year, you look at the metrics, you may say, no, that wasn't the right number. We need 16, we need 17. We need to do some type of system status, or we have more at night than during the day. I mean, during the day than instead of at night. So that needs to be a constant matrix that's followed. So that's my recommendation, is that the county be provider of the transport.
A county, you're talking about a countywide.
Countywide transport, the county be the provider. That's my motion.
Okay, so is there a second?
I'd like to have a little more discussion.
We have discussion after.
I'll second it.
All right, so now we have discussion.
So my concerns with having 2 separate fire departments.
Well, there's seats.
Then stand out front. We're talking amongst the committee members here.
Yes, we are.
So this is a closed discussion. So my concern by not co-joining the departments, which you've decided that you don't want to do, is that the resources that are going to be required are tremendous. I manage an EMS system today, and I'm going to tell you in real time that right now there's fire medics out here that are going to say, I want to do transport. But I'm going to tell you, I'm going to put you on that bus. I'm going to put you on that 24-hour truck. I've been a medic for 32 years, guys. I started with Sunstar. I worked with the fire department, flew in a helicopter. I run an EMS system now. I'm going to tell you, staffing is going to become an issue. And it's no different here in the villages than it is in Hillsborough County or in Pasco County. And guys that are not riding a transport truck 24 hours a day are going to get real tired of it real quick, because that's not what they were hired to do. So you're going to run into staffing problems, and then we're going to have to start talking about, and this is something I don't expect the community to understand, this single cert medics versus dual cert medics. You know, you look at neighboring counties such as Marion County. In 2008, they combined with the fire departments and took over the ambulance service. They went with a single cert, dual cert program. So they have high performance trucks. Their utilization is they go what they call signal 40, probably on a regular basis about 7 times a day in 24 hours, where they're low rescue volume. People are waiting 2, sometimes 3 hours to get trucks, to get ambulances. It's a real problem. So that's by thinking that with 8 stations in the villages, having their own transport agency is going to handle this, it's not going to happen. I'm just telling you that up front. That's not the solution. The solution is to develop a wide base. Now, I'm not saying absolve the village's fire department. That's not what I'm in favor of. But I am in favor of co-joining those departments. Leave their identity. Leave the village's fire department, but they need to be part of a bigger system so that we have the ability to move the resources. So that when 6 trucks in the villages go out and we've got 6 trucks in southern Sumter County not doing anything because the trucks are busy, we can system status those trucks to another station. Then you can ring them out, you can send them up for a station move up. So those are the concerns that are real concerns. And as Chief Reed said, that's getting into the operations of it. That's really getting into the weeds, and that's not what we're here for. We're here for a 30,000-foot view. And our job to report to the county commissioners is to say, this is how the big system works, then you work it out, operationalizing it. And, I just think that we're making a mistake. And I think we're probably going to be back at the table again in 5 years, addressing this again, going through the same thing because it's not going to work. And that's where I'm at.
If we're saying that it's not going to work, and one of the reasons it's not going to work is because of hospital issues.
We can't control the hospitals though.
No, but there are things you can do. And I've looked at this. I've done this from the hospital side of things. You can. One of my hospitals was the only level 1 trauma center in a state, and we started having to go on diversion because we had issues like the 2 villages hospitals are having. Although this was a level 1 trauma center, a big hospital. And what we did was we got the fire departments, actually, whatever the governmental entity was that had that particular fire department. We got them to pony up some money, and we put paramedics in our hospital ERs to help offload.
So the particular hospital you're talking about today, I stacked 2 units for 4 hours. 2 units today, in the middle of the day, 2 of my crews standing in the ER, waiting in line to offload for 4 hours. 2 patients on stretchers at the level 1 trauma center in Tampa. So if the issue is not going away, our COVID numbers through current COVID numbers in the Tampa Bay area are 25% higher than the highest admission rates that during the pandemic. From March of 2020, we were about 390 ICU admissions, and in the Hillsborough County area, we're now at 419. We're not having the deaths, but we still have the high admissions. The ERs are operating at 130% of their volume. There's not staff out there. And you can't control the hospital. There's no way that an EMS agency can mandate that patients, what a hospital can do.
I understand that, but there are suggestions that you can make, and sometimes money talks.
Chairman, I agree with the suggestion that you made, and actually, through talks over the last several years, AMR has been trying to do that very same thing with the local hospital. They've been trying to put crews in the hospital and do that offloading. They've offered them up additional staff, but the hospitals have chosen not to take those offers, of course, for finances and those other issues. But again, I think those are issues that need to be addressed through the operation of the system. That's going to be up to the county to how they're going to handle those. I think at least the way I saw it, our recommendation from what we were given, we were told we didn't have to stick with those 10, but those are the types of parameters we were given to make recommendations.
And I'm not trying to tell the county or anybody how to run their ambulance program. I was just giving you an example of a way that I helped solve it. Is there further discussion on this motion?
I think there needs to come to a firm. I'm Gail Lazenby, by the way, for those of you back there. I think we need to come to a firm and final recognition of the fact that there's 2 sides to this issue. One is Villages Public Safety that handles fire, EMS, and deals with transport. On the other side is Sumter Fire, which deals with fire, EMS, and deals with transport. This whole committee was founded upon the concept that there was a concern about response times from the ambulance service. that you didn't have to be blind to hear the concerns that were being expressed all over the villages and through other portions of the county about the fact that the fire service, the EMS service, whether it's villages or public safety, could be on scene in 4 minutes, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. And then you were going to wait another half hour, 45 minutes, maybe an hour or more in order to get a transport. Well, I was a medic for 40 years. I taught a paramedic program at the University of Buffalo Medic School. And I learned early on that when it comes to cardiac, time is muscle. I learned early on that when it comes to stroke, time is brain. Everything of late with regard to instruction in either of these areas has to do with move it, move it, move it, move it. Trauma also evolved in the same fashion. The objective was you had a golden hour in order to get a patient under bright lights and on cold steel. Shock trauma in Baltimore. Personally, I think that Villages Public Safety does an excellent job when it comes to fire and EMS. Conversely, I think that Sumter Fire does an excellent job when it comes to fire and EMS. Totally different kinds of operations. Villages is suburban, verging on urban, where Sumter County is significantly more rural. While there are some areas that might be considered suburban, it's a lot more rural than it is suburban. The issue of concern is that third portion of the triangle for both agencies, and that's transport. And of late, transport has fallen down on the job. They have not done what we need them to do. It's as simple as that. I recognize that the presentation that they made gave us a number of reasons. And I recognize also that, yes, they didn't plan on COVID. They didn't ask for COVID. They didn't ask for the difficulties that the hospitals have experienced with regard to admission. However, I did say at a previous meeting that I don't think AMR did a very good job of planning ahead, of having some kind of expectation of what may occur. And as a result, do I fault AMR? Yes. Do I feel that AMR is the answer to the current situation? No. If I'm going to choose anything of the group of 10 options, for me, it has to be option 9. I want to see Villages Public Safety as a separate entity. And even though it's going to be new to Villages Public Safety, I want to see them handling the ambulance service as well. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work. But there's only one way we're going to find out whether that works. And that's to go ahead and do it. Yes, there will be financial expenditure. I know that. I'm well aware of that. I live in the villages. Am I looking forward to being able to get out my checkbook and write more money to support Villages Public Safety? Not necessarily. But I don't think we can afford to leave the situation as it is. On the opposite side with Sumter Fire, Sumter Fire does an excellent job with fire and EMS. Transport is still the sticking point. Fine. Let Sumter Fire or the county, if they want, take over the transport portion, but get it out of the hands of private entity. First of all, private entity has as its bottom line the dollar sign. The expectation is if they weren't making money, they would not be in business. Now, I can tell you right now, in the 45 years that I've spent in the emergency service, sure, I was concerned about costs. I served as a fire commissioner, and I had to worry about budgets and the amount of money that got spent and how much you paid for a fire truck. And I can remember negotiating at length to make those kinds of purchases. But it still came back to the fact that it was less about the dollar signs than it was about the patient care. And that was premier. That was the most important issue. So from my perspective, the only answer, if we're going to use these options, the only answer is leave Village's public safety as it is, have them pick up a transport component, leave Sumter County Fire as it is, have them pick up a transport component, or the county to pick up the transport component. It could be either one. But to do otherwise means that we're simply going to stay as we are or move backward.
My name is David Bassoni. Just so you know, this is strictly a discussion amongst us. I apologize for that, but that's the way it's going to be. We have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded, and I'm going to state it again. Correct me if I'm wrong. You have proposed that there be a single ambulance provider, preferably, not preferably, but under the organization of the county.
Correct, Sumter County providing that.
Is that, could that be a private provider like?
No, that's not
Okay.
what I said.
So it's a
I
public
said Sumter County providing it, not as a contract, but the county providing it with county employees.
Okay.
So, let me just point of clarification, if I understand what you just said. So the county commissioners have control over this. Once they come out, the wire in the back of it. They can do what they want with that. They can turn it right over to the fire department if they wanted to. They could, okay? Just let them know, that people should be made aware of that just because they're gonna take control of it doesn't mean they're gonna go to an outside agency. They could turn around and say, okay, Chief Kane, give me a price to run this system. My
recommendation is that the county run it with county employees, because then it becomes, it's not a fractured system providing the service for the county, for the entire county. So they would provide it for the entire county, not as a contract, but as county employee.
All right. And for the sake of the audience, let me just also remind you, we are making a recommendation only. It is up to the Board of County Commissioners to decide what they want to do, and it might not be anything that we recommend. So that's an important point to remember. Now, so we have a motion on the floor. It's been seconded. We've had discussion. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of a single consolidated ambulance service under control of the county, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. So it's 3-2 in favor of single ambulance service.
Well, a single motor, the single process to get the ambulance service, not giving.
County run ambulance service, a county run EMS.
County's gonna run, but they're gonna go out bid.
No.
Oh, well, I hope I understand. Okay.
That's why I was trying to be careful.
Okay, I'm good with that. All right.
I don't understand. Are you sticking with your vote?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so we have that 3-2. And is there anything else we want to take up tonight?
Well, is there anything to take up?
Yeah, I think there is.
I would move that we continue to have Village's Public Safety as a separate entity and Sumter County Fire as a separate entity.
You already decided, we already discussed that.
We did that.
We voted not to consolidate, but I want to further clarify that we're going to have them as separate entities. I know wasn't any consolidation, but I don't see the same thing. I don't see the two motions as being similar or exclusive. So.
We've already voted.
And not consolidate.
Not consolidate. You want me to don't join?
Do you want to make a motion?
My motion is that Village's Public Safety remain as a separate and distinct entity. Sumter County Fire remain as a separate and distinct entity.
Is there a second? Discussion?
I think it's rehash a vote we already had.
Yeah, I think it's a little redundant, but since there's a motion on the floor, um, all in favor of the the two departments remaining separate, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, now, I think you brought up a good point. I think there are some other things that we ought to discuss.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
aren't we tasked with coming to a resolution for recommendation on these two items that we discussed? It seems like our committee's goal has been attained. Now we need to move with haste to the county and send our recommendation to them.
I think I think if you look at the options, there's at least one other thing that I would like to see us discuss. We don't have to do anything with it, but I'd like to discuss it, and that's the role of UF Health.
That's an operational question.
No, that's a contractual.
No, that's operational. I mean, their medical directorship is not something.
I'm not talking about medical directorship. If you look at the options, one of the options is an academic partner.
That academic partner was the one that was going to manage the ambulance service.
Correct, and we just agreed that we would not.
Okay.
We would not do that.
Recommend that.
All right.
So I think the next move that we need to make as a committee is to ask Leslie to draft a document to the Board of County Commissioners that we have come to the determination by majority vote that we wish to not consolidate the fire departments, and we have decided to recommend creating a Sumter County EMS county operator. Period. And that's the end of our action we've been tasked with. County EMS, Emergency Medical Services, is a transport ambulance service.
And Chairman, I just wanted to note that for the quick response vehicle, because that was an additional level within the options. If you wanted to proceed with adding the quick response vehicles, because that was one of the decisions within the 10 options that was previously submitted.
I would make the recommendation that consideration also be given to include quick response vehicles in the fire department's first response arsenal. Currently, Villages Public Safety has quick response units. Sumter County Fire and EMS does not. So I would recommend that they consider them for both entities.
I'd second that. Okay.
Discussion?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, all in favor, raise your hand, please. So we're recommending that both fire departments have quick response vehicles. We know the Villages already has some and would probably amplify. I think we've done what we needed to do. Mrs. Smith, would you like to take a stab at drafting something, or do you want me to?
No, I can prepare it for the chairman's review, and then it can be submitted at the next board meeting.
Okay, so we'll have a chance to look at it next meeting.
Correct.
Which is August 18th.
Will we meet to review that, or will she just send it out in email form and then we?
Well, I think we need to publicly review it.
Yes. I think we can't meet, obviously. We've got scheduled dates for the meetings already.
Do we need to meet attorney to review that? Do we need to meet to review the document of our recommendation?
Yeah, we do.
Pass the motion. So it needs to be reviewed. It probably needs to be set on the next agenda.
So the next agenda should only have us reviewing.
That's correct.
Not a public forum, just us meeting to review that document.
Because a vote would take place, you would have to conduct a public forum prior to the actual vote to authorize the chairman to proceed to sign the letter. And at that time, you could also vote if there was any additional changes.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think we need to vote on it until we see it. So you'll be preparing a document. And do me a favor, thank yourself in there on our behalf too. Otherwise, I'll have to put it in myself.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I guess we're adjourned. Anything else to say? Motion to adjourn. I've had too many motions tonight. All in favor?
Good night, everybody. I'm gonna be able to sleep tonight.